We're starting. We're here. We're right there, Nancee.
Let's start.
We're starting. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing because you don't need to see. You can see our lovely faces. Oh, and Lauren's face.
Good picture.
I don't know, but we can see you. Maybe everybody else can too.
On camera? No,
just your headshot. Just your headshot. So you got Jillian here.
And Nancee.
Yay. And the reason why we're both here is because, well, Nancee knows way more about opportunity zones than I do. And I want somebody here who can actually answer your questions. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I think you're going to really enjoy what Nancee has to share, because there are just so many benefits to doing an opportunity zone fund. And we have really both the Obama and Trump administration to thank for this. So I want you to put your political thoughts aside when you're hearing about all the amazing opportunities at an opportunity zone.
I may throw a few political thoughts in there.
Yay!
So,
see how we can make a non-boring a boring topic not so boring.
We're gonna try.
We're gonna do our best.
That's why I have Jillian here. She's gonna be the entertainment factor. So I spent this last weekend in Las Vegas. There was a big Opportunity Zone Expo, and most of what we focused on there were the second round of regulations that came out for opportunity zones. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and some things that we've learned. I may give just a brief summary of opportunity zones in case you don't know anything about it, but we do have a separate video that you can go and watch and get more details if that information I give goes too quickly.
Just give it.
Just give it.
Yeah, let's have it all in one place.
All right, let's do it.
Wait, my producer / life coach / director / chatbot is, oh, we'll
have some Q&A at the end as well. So if you want to put that in, we'll answer questions at the end.
Yes, so there's a Q&A. Please don't use the chat. Use the Q&A tab that I believe is on the top of your screen. Maybe it's on the bottom of your screen, but there's a Q&A and there's a chat. Please don't use the chat. Use the Q&A so that we can actually see your questions. Thank you.
There you go.
All right, Nancee, take it away.
All right. So in 2017, the Jobs Act created this whole new set of laws about opportunity zones, and they're all the rage right now. And this is where we're going to throw a little politics in. It's a bipartisan support. Couple reasons. There's tax breaks involved. Plus, the whole idea is to help distressed economic areas to be developed. And so these tax incentives apply in these areas where we want to increase development. So that's the idea behind it. And so a quick summary of the tax breaks. There's three things. One is, and it's all based around capital gains. So if you have capital gains and you don't want to pay any taxes on that for a little while or reduce the amount of taxes on that, then this is the place for you to go. So the first...
Oh, wait. And if you don't have capital gains right now, what have you been doing for the last couple of years?
We're just going to assume you do, or actually your investors have these capital gains and they don't know what to do with it. And this applies to any kind of capital gains, not just real estate, but stock, crypto, art, anything.
Crypto?
If you happen to have had gains with it. So anything. Anyway, so if you have these capital gains, you can put them into opportunity funds. And there's lots of little rules and nuances that we'd help you comply with. But assuming we do all that, you get them in the opportunity fund, then you wouldn't pay any taxes on those capital gains until 2026. So that's the first benefit. You get a deferral on those taxes, which is great. Now, if you can get your capital gains in an opportunity fund and leave it there for 5 years, then you can get a reduction in how much you have to pay on your capital gains, a 10% reduction. So let's say you have 100,000 in capital gains. In 5 years, you would only be paying capital gains on 90,000. If you leave it in an additional 2 years, so 7 years, that reduction then is 15%. So then you would only pay taxes on your 85,000 instead of 100. But that all comes due in 2026. So those are some great incentives. The real benefit comes with the third incentive. And that is if you keep your gains in a fund for 10 years or longer, then any appreciation on that asset after the 10 years, you pay 0 capital gains on. And that's the one that has everyone excited. So this is a very long-term plan investment, but you stand to save quite a bit on taxes with your capital gains. So that's the summary of the incentives. The regulations came out and they've been taking a lot of public comments, preliminary regulations. They still have not finalized things. So a lot of people are hesitant trying to figure out what's going on. With this second round that came out in April, there were a lot of great clarifications. So we'll get to those. But.
Do you know what this reminds me of though? Have you ever heard of the Marshmallow Test?
Yes.
This is like the Marshmallow Test.
With the toddlers.
Right. Yes. So
Can I make a guess? You eat the marshmallow as soon as they leave the room.
How dare you? How dare you? No, I don't like marshmallows that much unless it's in a s'more. Anyhow, so if you guys know what the Marshmallow Test is, it was an experiment done, I think, by Stanford University, where they took a group of toddlers and they gave them a marshmallow and said, if you eat the marshmallow now, you only get the one marshmallow, but if you wait, then we'll give you another marshmallow. It's the same concept. Can you wait? Can you wait for the second marshmallow? And that's what this is all about.
Right.
And then they would test to see what kind of toddlers would sit there and wait for the second marshmallow.
Right. So if you wait, you'll get more marshmallows at the end. That's the
yeah, wait for your marshmallows, folks.
So anyway, they had this huge conference out in Vegas to go over all the regulations. And it was a great conference. I met a ton of great people. A couple I did want to mention, I did get to hear. One was Steve Glickman, and he let me take his picture with him. But he was one of the people who got this whole thing started. He spoke the first day, and he talked about how this plan materialized from writing on the back of napkins, and has
that's crazy
snowballed into this great. I mean, it's on fire. Everybody wants to know about opportunity zones. We get calls and emails about it almost daily. So yeah, it's come a long ways. Everyone's supporting it. He told a funny story because he'd been in the White House. He was an economic advisor there, and I'm not getting all my facts exactly right, but the gist of it was that someone was in conversation with President Trump, and it's the first time he'd learned about opportunity zones, and so he heard a little bit about it, and then he went out and he's on his plane, and people were starting to ask him about some controversial issue going on, and his response to that was, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about opportunity zones. And everyone's like, what's an opportunity zone? So everyone's scrambling, trying to figure out what was going on. And that was kind of the introduction of getting Trump's support behind that. So I thought that was a funny story. That is
awesome. That is awesome. Hey, I have this picture here, I think.
That's not him. There's
you're going to talk about another guy. Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, that's
See, I get all my people messed up.
He might be the other picture. Anyway, so the next one, if you want to show the picture, this other person I met was Scott Turner. And he is currently right now, he's the executive director of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council. Super nice man, just really friendly, really excited about opportunity zones. And he gave, on the second day, he spoke during lunch and just gave this really inspirational speech about the whole purpose behind this is to help these communities improve and to get investments in there to improve the quality of life. And he talked about growing up and the challenges he faced and how he's hopeful that this program will spur the development that it's intended to do. And just, yeah, he was very inspirational. It was great.
I do think it's awesome. And I don't know if you guys know, and maybe you're going to talk about this, but like, for example, Puerto Rico was devastated. I used to live in Puerto Rico, just a side story, because I like to make everything about me. Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Just because I do like to make everything about me. And so I used to live in Puerto Rico in high school. I actually graduated high school there. And I very clearly remember, like, we'd have like a strong storm and all the electricity would go out for days, like days. There was the electricity was run by the government and it was not efficient. So if you would just sit there in your house with like not opening the refrigerator because you didn't want all the food to spoil. It was crazy. So now imagine like you have the worst storm you've ever been in times 10 and everybody on the island is affected.
Yes, demolished.
That is what has happened to Puerto Rico. And so one of the great things about what this Opportunity Zone concepts or law allows is for really the people like yourselves to rebuild Puerto Rico. I'm using Puerto Rico as almost like a distant example, but Detroit, Puerto Rico, parts of Buffalo, New York, like things like that, right?
Right. So every state has opportunity zones. They've already all been designated. You can Google online and there'll be a map that will show you where they're at. The entire country of Puerto Rico, though, the whole thing is an opportunity zone. So they're out there. You just got to find them. Okay, so I don't have all the new rules memorized just yet.
How dare you?
2 more weeks for that. So I'll be
webinar over.
But I do want to give you some of the takeaways that I got at this conference and just from reading through the regulations and give you some updates on some things we had questions about and where we're going from there. So one of the major questions we had was, if you create a fund, what happens if you want to buy and sell real estate within that 10-year time frame? Because typically our clients aren't keeping their real estate for that long, 3 to 5, 5 to 7 years. And to really hit that benchmark and get those benefits, you need the 10-year span to get that. So what the IRS has come out and said is that you can now buy and sell properties within that 10-year time frame as long as you reinvest the funds back into a new opportunity zone within 12 months. So you will keep that status and you won't lose your tax benefits so long as the fund reinvests the capital gains for you. There will be some taxation flow through that happens for the regular distributions, but as far as with your capital gains, you'll maintain that status and protection that's offered. So that was one exciting new clarification that we've been waiting on, that everyone's been asking about. So before this, our clients have wanting to just focus on one property and keep that in the fund. And now this is opening up where they are now able to do multiple properties, do larger funds. And that's kind of the idea behind it. They want to encourage investors to get out there and invest.
That's awesome. I love it.
All right, let's see. Second thing that we've learned, really exciting, that's totally new, is about leased property. And so a lot of these rules require the property to be purchased after 2017. And so we get people approaching us saying, well, I have this property, but it was before 2017. Am I out of luck? What do I do? And so they've carved out an area where you can lease property to a fund, which has created a whole new.
Oh, property. Wow. Okay. I'm just getting what you're saying right now because I'm a little slow, but.
You're not.
Oh, you're sweet. I suppose I shouldn't be laughing at my own ridiculousness. Anyhow, no, but explain that to me, please.
Okay, maybe if I explain what was before the regulation versus now, that will help clarify. So before the leasing option was carved out, if someone owned a property in an opportunity zone and wanted to benefit from this, there were some restrictions on it because the sale had to occur after 2017. And if they already owned it before that, then they've missed out on that opportunity.
Oh.
And if they wanted to sell their property to a new LLC in 2017, they could only own 20% or less of that new property.
Oh.
So they're missing out on some benefits.
Okay.
There. So it really was putting a hold on people who already own this property. So now they have an option where they can lease their property to the new LLC. And it doesn't matter if it's a related party LLC.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there's lots of restrictions under this we got to follow, but that's the gist of it. As long as you're leasing it at market rate, so you're not giving yourself a deal. You don't have, there's some prepayment things that you can't do, but it's basically the idea behind it is it's allowing people who already own the property to get some benefit and still participate through leasing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so another one was, so one of the rules with opportunity zones is if you were to go in and purchase a property, the requirement is you have to double the value of that property, not including the land. So I'll just make up an example. You purchase a property for $100,000 there's a building that exists on that property. Let's say the land's valued at 70, the building's valued at 30. The rules require, if you want to stay qualified, that you would have to invest an additional $30,000 into that property and increase its value within a 30-month time frame. So there was a lot of questions on, well, what does original use mean, and what do we do? There was a couple different things. So if there's no existing structure on the property, it's just raw land, then you don't have that doubling requirement. You can just go in and develop.
Oh.
So that.
Oh, that's great. So, okay. So like you could really get away with a lot doing that.
Well, they added even on some more exceptions.
Oh, okay.
So,
wow, really?
So the raw land was already there, but they said, well, what if there's a vacant building or an abandoned building that's just been sitting there? Do we really have to double that value?
Okay.
And so they gave a rule that if it's been vacant for up to 5 years or abandoned for that long, it can be treated as basically raw land, or you don't have to double that value as long as it's been abandoned for that long.
Okay. So the longer it's been like
unoccupied or not used. So which in these opportunity zone areas can be a common occurrence. Just people pull out and these buildings just sit there. So
yeah,
as long as you have that 5-year time frame, then you don't have that doubling requirement.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right, great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be great for say like an old factory that was otherwise considered. I can think of some areas where that probably is the case, where there's some kind of building that's just like, this has got to be raised, or there's a lot of.
But people want to convert them in. A real common is people want to convert them into self-storage units, or that's one we see a lot. So it just allows a little more flexibility in meeting those rules.
Right. And I just want to share real quick. I pulled this up while you were chatting. I want to just share this real quick. This is a picture. This is the IRS picture here. And if I could make it bigger, I would, but I'm having a hard time doing that. But this is where all the opportunity zones are. And like Nancee said, there's opportunity zones in every state. And in some areas, there's huge concentration. I mean, look at this concentration right over here in California, Arizona, New Mexico. And then even look, there's a spattering right along the coast. See, this is what's interesting to me. You can get coastal property.
Florida has a lot too. Like
yeah, you can get coastal property that's in an opportunity zone. That's pretty exciting. Even up here in Washington, you can get it off the coast of Maine. It's way up there in Maine, so
obviously you're going to have them in the big cities or just any low income area,
but still, I think that's pretty fascinating that you can get close to a coast. Or on a coast, because one of the things I've always maintained about coastal property is that the coasts in the United States are not getting any bigger. So if you have an opportunity to buy a coastal property, I think you need to take it if it's at the right price. And now you have this extra incentive of an opportunity zone as well.
Right.
So.
Well, and I will say something that was hammered in over and over and over at this conference, and I want to let you guys know, is you don't pick the deal because it's in an opportunity zone. The deal has to make sense.
The deal picks you.
The deal picks you. It has to stand on its own. That the opportunity zone is just a bonus. So if a deal makes sense on its own and you would do it anyway, and it happens to be in an opportunity zone, that's great. Because if you're just trying to find the deals in the opportunity zone and it doesn't make sense, you're going to have a really hard time getting funding. Investors may or may not want to put their money in because the risk is going to be higher for them. I know a lot of people are focusing on where there's a couple of really large funds out right now that have already created these opportunity funds. So maybe looking in the markets where they're investing. So it's very exciting. There's lots of good opportunities, but still you got to be careful with what you're doing.
Well, I'll say this, that to me is just such common sense.
Yeah.
So it's funny that had to be said over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like you don't just buy something in an opportunity zone because you can buy it. I mean, what if you buy contaminated land?
You could. Yeah.
And that would, from a meth lab or a factory.
You go straight to the meth lab.
When I think contaminated, I think meth lab, okay?
Or dry cleaners.
Okay, or that, whatever.
Yeah. So I think though the initial reaction is it's such a great opportunity and investors are very excited about it, but it has to make sense.
It's kind of like investing in marijuana now, right?
Which
everybody
there was
says
a whole
like
class on that.
Oh, for opportunity zones?
Yes.
Oh, just
We're gonna get to that.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, you can go for it.
No, I'm just saying, like, there's I went to a marijuana conference a couple of years ago, and it was like everybody
My mom
had
is watching, by the way, so just.
Oh. It's illegal in California.
It
is. My mom is watching. Hi, Mom. No, but like that was the thing a couple of years ago. I mean, it's still kind of a thing that now is that, oh, marijuana is becoming legal in so many states. Like, quick, hurry, invest.
Yes.
Well, guess what? I hate to break it to everybody. Not every marijuana opportunity is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
So
it seemed that way at first, and there was a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
But then when you got down to it, maybe not necessarily. So,
right.
No,
right.
You're right. And there was actually a whole thing because there's a lot of restrictions on the type of businesses that you can create in these opportunity zones or invest in.
Probably a good thing. You don't want
Yes.
to create an opportunity zone and then open 1 million check cashing places.
Well, they call them sin businesses, and they're things like liquor stores or gambling, even golf clubs, country clubs. They want to keep it focused on what would be appropriate in that area, but they did not put in there any type of cannabis related businesses. And that's one of those regulations that isn't finalized yet. There is this understanding right now that since it wasn't specifically carved out, that it should be allowed. I just saw a comment yesterday from somebody, because they're still accepting public comment, that maybe it wasn't necessarily specifically carved out because it's still not allowed under federal law. And so they didn't need to carve it out. So there's still some controversy there. So if you're a risk taker and you have a cannabis opportunity and on an opportunity zone, go for it. But
Nancee doesn't condone that because her mother's watching.
Right. Moving on.
I think I just made the life coach die.
For my mom. Let's see. Oh yeah. So another one of the requirements that was in the initial law was that if you are a opportunity zone business, then you have to show that 50% of your activity or your active conduct is in this opportunity zone area. That was very unclear what that meant. So they've now clarified a bit more on what would qualify as 50%. And they've set up a couple of things. One, you could count up how many service hours your employees are putting in. And as long as 50% of those hours occur in a zone, then you would meet that threshold. A second option would be by how much you pay your employees. So as long as 50% of whatever you're paying, your wages, are within the opportunity zone, then that would meet the threshold. Or if 50% of your wages or your income that's generated happens from either management or offices located in the opportunity zone, then that means, or they even allow a special facts and circumstances test. So people were wondering about, well, what if we create things in the opportunity zone, but then ship them out? Would that count? Or if we're getting supplies from outside the opportunity zone and need to bring them in, there's some transport. Anyway, so they're trying to help clear up those questions. So if you're trying to decide whether you want to invest in a business there or create a business, those are some clarifications.
It all works though, right? All of it, the real estate, the business, the whole thing works together. I like the fact that they have said you can't come in and trash the place further.
Right.
You know, like we're trying to build these communities up, not bring them down.
Right. And they're pretty strict on timelines. You have to, as a fund, you need to show that 90% of your assets are invested either in the real estate there, a business. Somehow you've got to be in these opportunity zones and you need to show that twice a year. So and you do that right now with financial statements, and you show them at year-end, tax year-end generally. And there's also this self-certification form that you file with the IRS. And so that's easily accessible, but there's not a lot of requirements to qualify. You just have to set up your fund either through a corporation or a partnership, when an LLC would work, and then file your self-certification. When you set up your operating agreement or your documents, you want to say the purpose is as an opportunity zone. And then you just got to meet the requirements that are set forth in the laws with the 90% or whatever it is. You know, we'd work through that with you to make sure. I feel like we're getting boring again. Say something.
Oh, something. Oh, I could. Hello, my honey. Hello.
We need to talk about our coordination. Oh,
I know. I know it looks like it's on purpose with the background and everything, and my well-placed plan and my cardinal, but we really don't work on these outfits together.
No, we don't. I'm that way.
We like have a mind meld or something beforehand.
All right. The next thing we learned was about substantial improvement. So we talked about how you need to double the value of a property or of an existing structure. Well, for our clients who are doing funds, they're going to have multiple properties. And so the question is, well, can we just aggregate those together and say, let's say we quadruple this property, but we don't double this property. But when we aggregate it together, it looks like we've doubled the value of all the properties in our fund. Is that okay? So far, no. They're still taking comments on that, but as of now, we would advise to operate under the assumption you cannot aggregate those. You have to double each one separately until we hear further on that. And then there's still some questions about exit strategies after the 10 years or longer. You have till 2047, you can allow this to grow. But at some point, you're going to exit out of these funds, and there's a lot of questions on how that's going to happen. And kind of the mindset right now is let's get the laws in place that apply to getting these set up and started. And since that's 10 years down the road, we'll kind of worry about that later.
Oh, sounds smart.
Right? That's great how the government
how I run my life. I'll figure that out later.
We're just worrying about tomorrow. So the idea right now, because some are set up as funds that invest directly in the property, and some are set up as funds that invest in businesses that then invest in properties. So we've got two different types of structures going on. And the idea now is if you invest in a fund and you sell the property owned by that fund, then that works. However, if you're investing in a business that owns the properties, then we're talking about selling interest in the fund, and that's when you sell a property, that's interest in the business, not the fund. Anyway, so there's some confusion going on. So we've talked about maybe converting those interests into a REIT, or no one's quite sure exactly how that will work. So that's why some people are hesitant on setting up the funds. Many people are moving forward with that because we're recognizing that that's a common business structure, and we're allowing for the investment within 12 months. So they're planning on people doing that. So it's expected that, before this 10-year time frame hits, they're going to come up with an exit plan that will work, that meets the goals of the investors.
That's great.
I know.
Are you ready to take questions?
We could. There's so much information.
I know.
Much, but I think
but
that's
I have my questions piling up.
Okay.
So I kind of
all right. I'm going to stop. We'll move on to questions.
All right. So I think it's pronounced Ball. I hope I have that right. And he has 3 questions. We told all of you only 1 question each. No, that's fine.
So can I pick which one I want to
answer? We're going to answer them all. Let's do it all. Can you combine capital gains of 2018 and 2019 for investment in an Opportunity Zone fund?
So if you are an investor and you want to put your funds into an opportunity fund, you have 180 days from the time your gain is realized before you can, or you have 180 days to invest.
Okay.
So if you got some gain at the end of 2018 and some at the beginning of 2019, then yes, that's fine, as long as you're in that 180 day window.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. So number 2 from Ball is, do all partners in the entity, I'm going to have to rephrase this. Do all the partners in the entity have to have a capital gain to participate?
No, you can have cash investors, but they don't get any extra benefit or tax gain.
It's almost kind of like, well, then why are you here? Unless there's like a huge value proposition there, I suppose, right?
Right.
Okay. What is the timeline to invest capital gain of 2018?
So that's just 180 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that mean, correct me if I'm wrong, does that mean like if it happened in December, it's got to be done by May? If it happened in November, it has to happen by, like, is that what you mean by that? Okay.
Now, and some capital gains are realized immediately upon a sale. Some capital gains, figuring out with partnerships and 1231, you may not know till the very end of the year. So they start the clock December 31st at the end of the year when you've been able to net your losses and gains. And then that would be when the clock starts ticking for those capital gains.
So Daryl, I just saw your question and I'm going to share my screen real quick. You asked where are opportunity zones and how do you find them? So if you take a look over here on my screen, you can just go, if you go irs.gov, opportunity zones, you can find all kinds of information there. I believe it, and right here. So look, just Google irs.gov opportunity zones, and you can get a complete list of opportunity zones right there. And all the information's right here. So hopefully that answers your question there. And Daryl also asks, wait, oh, maybe not Daryl. Yes, Daryl asks, if they are in risky areas for development, the risk may outweigh the benefit, especially for a 10-year period. Well, that's what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
And that was our
Maybe
our
he asked
analogy.
that before I put that out there. But yeah,
No,
exactly.
yeah,
so got to make sure the numbers make sense. And you brought up a good point. Sometimes your return on investment after 5 to 7 years starts going down, and the tax benefits you gain may not be outweighed by that reduction in your investment. So you got to run the numbers for your specific deal and see what makes the most sense.
Yeah, and then Dennis is asking a really interesting question that I'm not sure I got this from what you were saying. When you reinvest your funds from an opportunity zone investment, does that reset the 10-year clock at year one?
No, that's a good question. It continues on as long as it's reinvested within that 12-month time frame. So that would continue that 10-year.
Isn't that cool? Oh,
now,
that's such an advantage.
Here's a question. You brought up a good point. We talked about if it's invested for 5 years, you get the 10% reduction. If it's invested for 7, then you get the 15% reduction. Well, the key here is that all stops in 2026. And so you've got to invest by the end of 2019 to get that full 7-year benefit. Mm-hmm. So if you invest next year, you're only going to be able to get to that 5-year. You're not going to reach that 7-year before that reduction would occur. But you do need to make it clear to your investors, they will owe capital gains tax in 2026 on whatever they have invested, that base amount, even if they leave it in the fund to continue on the 10 years. So a lot of our clients are planning on setting up the fund for an option to do a refi at that point if they need to pull out cash for the investors to be able to pay those taxes.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So, okay. So DJ is here. I'm very happy that you're here. Hi. Cycling through. And by the way, we're waiting for your next deal, dude. Give me some love. So no, don't go into a bad deal. Don't go into a bad deal just to give me some love. Okay, so cycling through multiple properties and reinvesting over 10 years. Are there any special considerations for the structure? We'll start with that question.
It was just like I was talking about, there's 2 different methodologies you could just do. And I think that goes into your second question. Does this only work with funds or can one-off syndications do it too? Both. We could see either structure would work. So, and that's going to depend on your goals, your properties that you're finding. Some may make sense to stay in for the 10 years, some may not. So that's really more specific to what you're looking. So you can, give me a call and we can, if you have something you're specifically looking at.
And Sandra says hi.
That's
and
my
I don't want to, hi Mom. Oh, you weren't kidding.
No, I don't. I like that question. Thank you.
Nancee, when was it you started smoking marijuana cigarettes?
She did not ask that. Never.
Okay.
Moving
Oh, I've never seen you turn that shade of red before. Anyhow, okay, Michelle asks, if you come upon a property that is a great deal and it is within very close proximity of an opportunity zone. Oh, look at Michelle already trying to bend the rules, but not within the current bounds. Is there a way to appeal for the opportunity zone treatment?
Not at this time. Those are pretty set. There is talk that maybe someday down the road they might open up some more zones if this goes well. But as of right now, they're all final. If you do happen to find a property that straddles an opportunity zone and non-opportunity zone area, the rule you would look at is basically as long as 50% or more is in the opportunity zone, then that whole area would qualify.
Now, this just in from my life coach. She has questions.
Oh, she does.
Can you cross zones if reinvesting? Meaning if one is in California and the next is in Illinois?
Yes, as long as that, if you have a fund that invests in different states, that's fine. As long as your 90% of them are in opportunities.
That's a great question. Thank you, life coach. Yeah. So Vivian asks, is there a way for a nonprofit developing housing in an opportunity zone can qualify even if when there's no equity?
No. Okay. I get that. So you can only invest equity, no debt lending or anything. Can you be a 10-year investment? No.
Okay. All right.
No, you can only do equity.
Oh, I'm glad you got that because I didn't know what was going on.
I think that's what you're asking.
So Brad's asking, I have tried to understand the information available on the IRS website. It's the IRS, Brad. Of course you don't understand it.
I would say go to every other page before you go to the IRS.
Right. Like, that's why you're here, right? Regarding understanding what I need to qualify for opportunity zone, but it seems very complicated. Are there reference resources you can recommend? Well, do you have some articles on our website?
We do have some, so definitely check our website. I've published a few articles on our blog, and definitely if you want to, I would refer our firm. Yeah,
just, know what, go ahead. You can also, if you're really serious about doing an opportunity zone, make an appointment with Nancee on our website.
It's actually pretty easy to get qualified. It's the staying qualified where it gets a little bit more complicated. It really is just setting up an LLC and filing a form with the IRS and claiming that you're qualified. And then it's meeting all the thresholds to stay that way where it gets a little more complicated.
Yeah, and I think all of you here know that our website is crowdfundinglawyers.net. So if you want to go there, check out some other articles. And I want to announce that Nancee is going to be writing a book on opportunities.
Oh, I'm going to get a bonus for this, right?
Her book will be published in, I'll give you 6 months.
I'm leaving out of the country tomorrow for vacation, so I'll write it while I'm on vacation. And
no, you won't. Oh my God. Don't even joke about that. I'll be calling you. Hey, how's that book coming? How are you doing? Yeah. Oh my God. Hey, Jillian, it's just Nancee, I'm not coming back. Bye. All right. Michael asks, is financing permissible from a lender financial institution? And how does that factor into the opportunity zone financial and legal analysis?
Yes, you are allowed to get lending, and it works just like any other deal. The thing we're finding though is it's a little bit harder to get lending just because these are riskier investments. So a lot of times your leverage needs to be down at 60-65% to make sure that lenders are interested. But yeah, you can do lending.
Now Jane's asking a question I can actually answer.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to answer it. So Jane asks, how do the security regs apply when collecting funds for these funds? The security regulations are exactly the same. They're always what they've always been. So we're talking about two different entities, right? We're talking about the IRS. That's the Opportunity Zone Fund blessing. And then the SEC has its own rules. You follow regular securities laws rules while doing an Opportunity Zone Fund or syndication. So if you have investors into your deal, which obviously you would because the whole point about this is like to help people with their capital gains, then you were going to follow, Reg D, Regulation A, Rule 506B, Rule 506C, whatever regulation you're going to follow. As if you were doing any run-of-the-mill real estate syndication or real estate fund is the same regulation you're going to follow with an Opportunity Zone Fund. Okay, so Joseph asks, are there any implications of gains realized from properties where a 1031 exchange was done prior to the purchase of the current property?
Okay. Just done. So I don't know if I quite understand your question, but I will just talk about how 1031s relate. I'm hoping that I answer
somewhere in there you answer it. Yeah, all right.
So
Sounds good.
You have funds tied up in a 1031 exchange, you could sell that property and take the base that you paid originally and keep it and split off the capital gains from that property and invest it now into an opportunity fund. And then continue on with, it's driving crazy.
Oh, sorry. I was looking to see if we had other questions. Oh, sorry.
But no, it's fine. And continue on with the Opportunity Zone benefits. You would, however, lose any future 1031 benefits by doing that. So that's one side of it. If you wanted to keep your 1031 and invest into an opportunity fund, you would do that as you would in any security offering with a tick, and you would not benefit from the capital gain benefits with the opportunity fund because you're coming in as a 1031, that's property, not purchasing an interest in the fund. So I hope, does that answer that question? I hope so.
If not, just ask another question, please. We have a couple more minutes. We're going to take a couple more questions here. Are capital gains tax on original invested dollars still due at the 10 years? If you referenced depreciation on original investment being tax-free after 10 years.
So the capital gains are due not in 10 years, but at 2026.
Yeah. Even I was listening.
On the initial, you erased the question.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to.
So yeah, there was two.
That's all we got.
Sorry.
Our
okay.
capital, yeah, there you go.
Your depreciation on original. Yeah, so for your original capital gains, you still owe taxes on that in 2026. Now, let's say you put those capital gains into a property that's valued at $100,000. 2026, you pay your taxes on that capital gains. 10 years from now, you sell the property for $500,000. It's appreciated $400,000. You don't pay capital gains on that $400,000.
Very good. Are there any limits on number of owners for each property or crowdfunding cap to be raised?
Nope.
Yeah, the limit is really with a limit in terms of securities laws, not in terms of IRS funds.
Right.
So if you're doing a Rule 506B offering, you can raise money from as many accredited investors as you want and up to 35 sophisticated investors. Under 506C, it's only accredited investors, but you can have as many of those as you want. And under Regulation A, you can have as many investors as you want, whether they're accredited or unaccredited. Okay, so Frank asks, do opportunity zones have an impact on short-term capital gains?
I'm not sure what he's asking with that.
Well, I suppose a short-term capital gain would be something under a year. So if you're holding something, I mean, capital gains are capital gains.
Yeah, as long as there's no restrictions on the capital gains that can be invested.
Yeah, so it can be a long-term or a short-term capital gain.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so what benefit would I get if I didn't have a capital gain event? Just what to invest in an Opportunity Zone fund? Well, look, I said this yesterday in a Facebook video. One of the I guess opportunities there is that, well, first of all, think about it. If you have a property, you're doubling it in value. There's that. Number one, yeah, it's a higher risk area. It's not Class A. It's not going to be Class A area. That's the whole point. But I think about it. It's an impact investing type of situation as well. So maybe you won't make the returns you would normally make in a regular real estate fund or a very specific real estate fund, but you will have the opportunity to make an impact in a particular community, and there's probably still an opportunity to make money there. It might just not be as much, and it might be at a higher risk, but I would approach it, if you are thinking about getting into an opportunity zone and you don't have any capital gains to take advantage of this, I would think about it as an impact investing play.
Yeah.
All right. John asks, what would be a better strategy, a 1031 exchange or an opportunity zone?
Yeah, it's a case-by-case basis. You'd have to look at what type of gains you'd get out of your 1031. You know, that long-term, that 1031 capital gains, that continues on, where with the opportunity zone, there's an end point at 2047. That's when you have to be done. Mm-hmm. So any appreciation up to that point. So, you know, there's pros and cons on both sides. So it's hard to say which I would recommend. So
Rob, it's nice to see you, Rob. Hi. Robert's asking, and by the way, this is Robert Bohr. He's a great real estate attorney out of Florida. So if you need a real estate attorney in Florida, please let us know. So Robert asks, just to clarify, the 10 to 15% of benefit is applies to incoming funds that include capital gains. And the 10-year mark capital gain benefit is for the capital gains at the time of sale.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That was a great summary. Yes.
Well, thank you, Robert. All right. I'm going to go down to DJ again. Is it like 1031 exchange in a 506 where all the investors need to carry over, or can some cash out?
Some can cash out.
Okay. Very good. And
hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan. Another attorney in the firm. Jonathan asks, can you do an opportunity fund under Regulation A? And the answer is yes. And we would love to see your Opportunity Zone funds under Regulation A, because that gives an opportunity for more people to benefit from opportunity zones. Because, like, this is a great economy now, and it's not just accredited investors who've realized gains in real estate. Now there are people who live in various locations. I think about the people who've lived in Silicon Valley for 30 years, right? They have massive capital gains on property.
Well, and it's a great chance for people outside of real estate that have capital gains that want to get into real estate, but they have capital gains in stocks or whatever it is. This is a great opportunity for them to switch over.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions here. We're going to try to get to all of them.
Okay.
I'm going to go backwards here on this one. So Dennis is asking, so let's say I need $1 million to purchase raw land and building a new building in an opportunity zone. Does all $1 million have to be in the fund before we start the deal off? I guess this would fall back to the PPM requirements than the O's. It's like you answered your own question, but, Dennis, in the middle there.
Yeah, as far as with the raw land, there isn't a time frame on that. Now, if it was an existing structure that you would have to double that value, you have 30 months. So you want to make sure you've got that funding in place to be able to do that.
Right. And then Amanda asks, hi, Amanda, nice to see you. It is my understanding that the fund has 180 days to invest the money in real estate once they receive the money from the investors. For funds that have many investors, does the clock start on the date of the first investment dollars, or when does it start, I guess?
Okay, so the investor has 180 days to put their money into the fund. Now, the fund, once they receive the money, they have 6 months to invest into the property. So there's a little bit of a time frame buffer for both of them. Okay.
So now, listen, anonymous, whoever you might be. I don't normally answer anonymous questions, but I'm going to do you a solid. If you invest, because it doesn't look like you're trolling, if you invest in an Opportunity Zone qualified property, can you complete a 1031 exchange before 2026 to defer capital gains?
No, because you're investing as a member of an LLC, so it's not with property.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, step 1 to step 2, right? So it seems to get the most benefits with this program, you need to complete the deal in 2019. Yeah, that's true. Do you think the IRS will extend this time frame into 2020 or 2021?
So far, not yet. There's been public comment requesting that to happen, but no guarantees.
And so finally, we've got DJ's last question here, and this is going to be the last one we're going to do. Last year, we bought a property that is now an Opportunity Zone. Can I take advantage of that, or is it only new purchase since the program launched?
So that's where the leasing laws would come in place. I'm not sure when you jumped on here, but maybe you could lease that property to a new LLC, or which would be your opportunity fund.
And see, it can be a related LLC. It does not have to be an arm's length transaction. So, well, guys, that's all our questions. And I think your questions were amazing. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate y'all being here today. If you have any other questions, contact Nancee. Don't contact me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm in the country for a week.
I'm just here to be the pretty face. So
hit me up next week. I have my calendar's online if you want to schedule a 15-minute chat about something specific. And I'm hungry. I'm ready to go to lunch.
All right, me too. All right, guys, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye.